jumping back in now to talk about what is the antidote to burnout. And I've just been talking about how an internal locus of control, or being able to say that there's something that I can do, is far more adaptive than giving in to a sense that there's nothing I can do about it. And when you actually look at literature, whether it's to do with principals or teachers, or even in the world that I work in with pastoral carers, it boils down to a really simple formula. That's hard to do, but it's a simple formula. The first thing you need to do is manage your personal resources. What do I mean by that? I mean to say that it's actually about figuring out how your stress levels are in all of those different areas of your world, having a good old audit, penetrating look at how you're managing your personal life, not only your work life. It's about looking at your work resources, and the key to that is not necessarily cutting down the workload. It's actually increasing the meaning of the work that you do. And some of that is internal. A lot of that is internal work. Figuring out, why am I doing this? Right, so 2 weeks ago, I probably got to a stage where I thought, the world's heard enough of burnout. I think I can now go and open up my bakery and master one muffin at a time. Right? I was having a moment. That's okay. When I'm sitting in a room with a client thinking, nothing that I'm saying is news to this person, right? I'm making it sound so simplistic to them. You have to dig into the meaning of your work. You have to dig in to say, no, the work's not done yet. It's not finished. We've only really scratched the tip of the iceberg. I have to keep going. I have to keep holding on, because you dig into why you do what you do. And I will do an exercise about that. So it's increasing meaning. Sometimes it's about modifying workload and work type. Okay. So how many of you hear work-life balance thrown about a lot? I want to tell you that it's a myth. And it actually feeds into therapists' perfectionistic, unrelenting standards when we talk about work-life balance. I see some nods here. Have you ever thought about this before?
I think because I talked to you.
I because I talked to me. If you look at productivity literature, work-life balance is a myth. You're never going to get there. And you're going to feel really tick a box, punish yourself, blame someone if you try to achieve it. What I mean by this, I mean to say that I'd like a job where I finish at 5 o'clock and I will never check my emails. And I will not go on my phone after 6 o'clock. And on Saturdays and Sundays, I will do the housework in the morning, and then I will soak in a tub for 2 hours, right? You can't get sick. Your dog eats chocolate. The rain prevents laundry for 2 weeks. You suddenly get an influx of clients in risk. Work-life balance is a myth. And it reinforces perfectionistic messages in therapists, because we feel like we're the phony and the fake, because we're telling other people to get work-life balance and we can't achieve it ourselves. Instead, I suggest that it's all about a skateboard approach. I don't know how to ride a skateboard. Do any of you know how to ride a skateboard? Okay, good, I'm in good company. I think it looks something like this. You get on a skateboard and you have to adjust, right, as you're going. You can kind of look at the terrain ahead of you and figure out how much more adjustment do I need. There's a hill coming up. I'm assuming pebbles might be an issue for someone on a skateboard, I don't know. And you adjust. You're constantly adjusting your center of gravity, as well as your position on the skateboard. And you keep moving. And that's what it means to actually achieve calibration. So I like to call it more these days, not work-life balance, but work-life calibration. We figure out what's going with ourselves, and I'll take you through that in a minute. Finally, you cannot get away from burnout literature without acknowledging that increasing meaning and engagement means having a growth mindset. Are you familiar with grit literature? Angela Duckworth, that's the name to look up. grit literature is really useful for us. You can sort of debate the empirical foundations of it if you like, but there was a time when psychology took off its hat to philosophy as well as the sciences, right? And we come from a heritage of actually not Medicare, not CBT, but from Freud, from thinking about existential issues, Viktor Frankl, Yalom. If you haven't read The Gift of Therapy, please read it, right? If it was so easy, I could write a book on 10 steps to overcome burnout and we'd all be done, make my millions. No. So we come from a legacy of needing to feel pain, embrace pain, push through it, and grow. And for me, I'll tell you what that means for me. If I encounter a case in the clinic because I'm primary supervisor and I get a sense of rising helplessness, I check in on my skateboard. I'm feeling wobbly. What I do about it, I reach out for supervision, I do some reading, I read some journal articles, and then I pat myself on the back and said, you just grew through this. I don't reduce my caseload in it, I increase my caseload in the area. So growth is really, really important. And holding the perspective that this is meant to be really, really hard. I feel like I'm bringing a lot of bad news to you. It's meant to be hard and it's okay. I talk about the gift of normalization. Don't we do that with our clients? What is the gift of normalization?
It's not just me.
It's understandable.
It's understandable. It's not just me. We're all feeling it. We feel it together. It's not you. You haven't done something wrong. So having the perspective and not being afraid that it's actually meant to feel this hard. That's the gift of therapy. That is the gift of therapy. So if you read Yalom, he talks about how we need to embrace difficult topics like death. And so therefore, we got to build therapeutic muscle. Do you go to the gym? Okay, this is how I know the journey of my muscles. I used to be able to lift a 15-kilo child. Now I struggle with a 5-kilo bag of rice. So similarly, how do muscles grow? Yeah, you work on them. And is it fun?
Not usually.
Yeah.
It's really painful too, actually. And what is required is recovery, true? You feel the pain, you've got to recover, and the muscle goes. So your therapeutic muscle actually needs to grow. Why I'm actually spending a lot of time in this is I want us to be able to get into a frame of reference that moves beyond self-care. I'm going to jump to those slides now, if that's okay. Then we'll do the taking stock exercise. I want to talk to you about my passion about self-care and the disservice that I think is being done. This is probably not in your slides as well. So you can just gaze into my eyes while I take you through this. Do you know the history of self-care? Where it actually came from? Self-care comes from a civil rights movement. Right? The phrase was first used in the context of a civil rights movement where women, particularly women of minority, were realizing that they couldn't rely on other people to take care of themselves. They couldn't get access to medical, they couldn't get access to health care. And the realization was that I can't perish in this absence of care for me, internal locus of control. I've got to do something about it, right? So first of all, it came from the awareness that they had to take care of their bodies themselves. But second of all, as the civil rights movement moves on from feminism, and then you actually have equality of race, it also got used in a time where the people who were standing up against discrimination realized that their voice couldn't be snuffed out. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare, says one activist. It's really small, I have to put on my glasses now to read the other one. It says, self-care has to be incorporated into all our efforts. This is something new. This is something I have learned from younger generations. I had to learn from younger people that it's as important to take care of yourself and to do this within a collective context. So yes, this means exercising the body. Yes, this means finding a place for spiritual expression. This holistic approach to organizing is, I think, what will eventually move us along the trajectory that will move us to more victories. Do you see that? So self-care is not what I like to say, this picture. It is part of it. I've had at least 3 in the last 2 weeks. Self-care is an act of defiance that says, I will not go down. It's discipline. It's mental fortitude. It's seeing the long game. It's actually saying, I want to be around for this person. My message isn't finished yet. You get what I'm saying? And so self-care is our responsibility. It has to be our responsibility. We can't roll our eyes at it. We can't neglect it. So whenever someone says to you self-care, I want you to remember that it came from a season of time where women, communities and societies said, I will not go down. Okay? And that's enough now for you life people. You have to get me in.